Hello and welcome to the Hustle Over Everything podcast. This is the podcast where you receive stories, tips, and strategies from entrepreneurs to grow your business and take yourself to the next level as a person. Today is part 2 of the podcast with Adam Rivietz, where we're covering his journey with hashtag paid. Let's just jump straight into it. All right, let's get into the podcast housekeeping items. All right, guys, to support the podcast, you have two options. One is free, one is paid. If you're on Apple, make sure that you rate, write a review, and talk about our podcast. This makes a huge difference. If you're on Spotify, follow us and download the episodes. If you're on Google Play, hit subscribe and auto download so you'll be notified when we have a fresh piece of content ready to go for you. Guys, one thing we need to stress is that we're on YouTube now. Did you know that? Check us out on YouTube. Just search Hustle Over Everything. We come right up. You see the bright yellow branding and you cannot miss it. Subscribe and show your support. It makes a strong difference, guys. Support the Black-owned business, you know. On Instagram, we're at 24/7 Hustler. You know, take a screenshot of the podcast and post it to your stories and tag us so we can see it and repost you. And we want to see and connect with you guys. We want to connect with the community. We are a community. So anything you want to add and chime in about, we want to know. We might just feature on the podcast. Moving forward, on Twitter, we are 24/7 Hustlers. On Facebook, we're Hustle Over Everything. Now, for paid options, I'm not done. Let me get into the email. Our weekly newsletter is called the 24/7 Hustle. It covers news in business, music, and culture through the entrepreneurship lens. Man, Owen has been busting his ass working on this. You know, I got to give him kudos. I got to big my dog up. He's been working his ass off.
Cheers, bro. Appreciate it.
Quality content on a weekly basis. Guys, support this.
And also share it.
Yes.
Share with your friends too.
Yes, share it. We're trying to grow it. We're trying to create a community here. So sharing it with people who are like-minded, who are entrepreneurs, trying to grow themselves and grow their business is very key. Moving right along. Pay options, donations. Our Proud to Pay program link is in the description down below. We appreciate any support. We have a full stack of merch on our website. You can go pick up a Hustle Over Everything t-shirt or a hat. Owen is currently wearing the sweater. I'm not today. I'm just wearing a classic black tee. Owen's wearing it up. But yeah, moving forward, let's jump right into the show. You got your first enterprise client with Pepsi. Can you walk us through that deal? Because I know it's a lot farther back, but so maybe you could talk about it now. But getting an enterprise client is like almost the tipping point for a lot of businesses, you know? So yeah, walk us through that process.
I wish it was a great long story, but honestly, I knew nothing back then about selling. Or about advertising. I had just dropped out like 6 months before, never took an advertising course in my life. I don't think I knew very much about sales compared to what I know now. I mean, I had never been in a sales training course in my life, and now I've been in dozens and been mentored by a lot of amazing people. So thinking back, it's actually interesting because I think that's part of the advertising business, and more importantly, part of all enterprise sales. Comes down to a relationship. I just happened to go to Western for that brief stint with a buddy who became the brand manager of Mountain Dew. And then he said, hey, I only know one influencer marketing company or two influencer marketing companies at the time. And so I'll bring them both in, and through our relationship, and then obviously putting our best foot forward as a company to impress our friend and ultimately Pepsi was what it took. It's the relationship to get you in the door, I think, for enterprise customers. In a lot of cases, that's actually how we hired a lot of our first enterprise sales folks, is just looking at their Rolodex and seeing, who do you know that we don't? Who are the senior connections you have that we don't? what's your past track record? Who have you sold to? And then you really hire people for their Rolodex to some extent. They obviously have to have other skills, be good salespeople, but I think for enterprise sales, relationships are super important, especially in advertising and I'm sure other industries. But then as you start going down market, I actually find it gets harder to sell. The price tag might be lower, the sales cycle might be shorter, but I think that's when you shift from being a relationship seller to being a technical seller and actually having to have those sales chops of being able to build your own pipeline. Like every good sales organization starts their salespeople in the SDR or sales development role because you build the muscle of doing outbound and handling inbound and qualifying leads. And a lot of amazing salespeople, or who think they're amazing, who might have MBAs from top schools, they are terrible at prospecting and don't put in the time to build their own pipeline because they expect a junior person to do it. But every salesperson, the best ones, they sure might get leads passed to them from a junior person, but are always prospecting themselves and building their pipeline. And then secondarily is discovery. Most salespeople don't do enough discovery. They try to get on their first call and jam their product down your throat and do their capabilities presentation, then follow up with you 1,000 times just saying, do you have an update? What'd you think? What'd you think? The best salespeople don't even share a presentation for their first 2 or 3 calls. And they spend that time doing discovery to understand what their potential clients' problems are. Because it is unanimous in psychology that if you can prove to someone that you understand their problem better than anyone else, when you eventually present a solution, you will by default be the way that they go because you've built up that trust and they know that whether that solution's right or not, you're gonna figure out what's right because you get their problem fundamentally better than anyone else. And so those are the 2 biggest things, prospecting and discovery, I think, outside of relationships that make great salespeople.
Adam, I have to agree with you 100%. I've been in sales like my whole life. I've done the SDR, I've done account executive at many different like tech companies. And one of the things I realized from a very early stage is that sales is all about the marathon, right? I think when you come in as an SDR, you become an account executive, it's like you think about the commission you're going to make when you close a deal, when you get that company on board. But it's all about like actually being patient, but also persistent at the same time. It's like balancing both of them and like driving that sale forward. And you're right, man. It's like all about relationships. I remember early on when I was getting started in sales, like I was just kind of like, because I was like, I can sell. Like I've done door to door. I've done many different things. And when I actually started like building those relationships and actually talking to them and listening, and listening is such an underrated skill in sales, and actually knowing when to let the person talk and hear their problem out instead of just like thinking of something to say when they're already talking just because it's part of the script. And this is one of the things about sales scripts that a lot of people don't get is that you have to make the script a part of you. Like you have to really know the product. And you have to make the sales script a part of you. Like you have to live it, breathe it, walk it, and talk it every single time. So, yeah, man, and good on you, man. Like sales is like not an easy thing, and you just kind of came in and crushed it with Pepsi. Like that's like from going from high school to like the pros in sales in a way, like closing such a big deal right off the bat.
Well, thanks. I would like to say there was more to it than the relationship, but it's just like any other muscle. You've got to work on it and train, and you get better and you learn new things with every deal you do. But sales as a whole, like if you're not a good entrepreneur, you won't be a good salesperson. If you're not a good salesperson, you won't be a good entrepreneur, because the thing that is most in common with the generality of running a business and selling is the ups and downs and the amount of times that you get no and or hear no and get doors slammed in your face. Running your business, 1 month's great, 1 month's not. It's this up and down.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with sales, where you get a lot of no's and you're just chasing that one yes. And to your point of, relationships being important, but then finding that balance of when to push and when to not, and to when to be patient and when to communicate. It's the exact same thing when you're pursuing, a significant other. It's literally dating. It's, are you playing hard to get, or are you not? Are you communicating with this person too regularly that you're going to like talk yourself out of a date? Or are you leaving enough mystery that they're leaning in and want to learn more?
Definitely, yeah.
So there is, a ton of similarities between being an entrepreneur, being a salesperson, and, how you treat all of your relationships in your personal life as well.
Of course, man. You got to woo them to get them, right?
Exactly.
Most definitely. One thing I always find very artful when it comes to sales is overcoming objections. Overcoming objections has been very art based. I find it's never as simple as do 1, 2, and 3 after. It's kind of your own strategy. Do you have your own strategy for overcoming objections?
Sort of. So we do some activities internally around objection handling, where the most important thing, again, is discovery around the objection. So really getting to the reason why. Like most people who are buying, they just have their own preconceived notions and their own bias about, I've done influencer marketing. It sucks because I had one bad experience with a shitty company 5 years ago. Or they're used to buying in a certain way of ask you for a case study and ship it to their manager and go through 50 meetings. And so the most important thing when it comes to objection handling is understanding the root of the objection. Hey, send me a case study so I can send it to my boss. Well, why? I'm obviously going to send you a case study that makes us look good, or I wouldn't send it to you. So why do you really want a case study? Oh, well, it's because I need to justify, the investment and show him that there's a path to get a 4-to-1 ROAS. Okay, so the real issue is you need to see how to get a 4-to-1 ROAS. And if I can do that in a proposal versus a case study, what's the difference? Or if I can show you, an example. So it's really, again, just digging deeper into why do you care about the case study? Why, what does your manager typically need to onboard a new vendor? Asking questions about similar scenarios that they've been through, to then get to that root cause helps you get from that surface level problem to really understanding the root issue of why they won't buy. Because in a lot of cases, it's I didn't have some marketing material. But no, it's really you didn't do the discovery to find out what that issue was to then make them comfortable with it. So I think that's the step 1 to objection handling, is getting to the real objection. And then in some cases, just if you don't have an answer, say you don't have it, go to your team and tell them you'll get back to them. That's better than making up some bullshit answer that you'll get called out on later. And I don't know, those are sort of the general rules without, knowing the specific objection, but it's get to the root cause and understand that people just have their certain processes they go down, and try and break down that process that they're used to going down and convert them to following your process. Because as a salesperson, you need to have control of the sales process. You need to be the one booking every follow-up and making sure that they're delivering what they need to, or making it as easy as they can. And if you lose that control of the sales process, you're probably going to lose the deal. So hijacking their process in their head, or really getting a deep understanding of what they're expecting to better align your process, is key.
Big gem. Most definitely.
Big gem, bro.
Big gem. All right. So what are some of the hurdles? Because a lot of people, when they get into influencer marketing from the agency side, in your experience, what were some of the hurdles that you experienced? I know you moved to New York at one point, or try to expand. And growing an agency is never easy because you have to deal with a lot of humans, and humans can suck.
Yep.
So what are some of the hurdles?
Throughout the business, there have been quite a few, just dealing with the education of the industry, like I mentioned. But when new companies or clients, or even prospective leads start doing influencer marketing on their own, they usually either go the traditional route of find one macro influencer or celebrity, someone with millions of followers to be their spokesperson. We like to say gone are the days of the celebrity spokesperson because it's too risky. You could end up with a Jared from Subway or a Papa John who does something illegit, and then your whole brand is tied to this scumbag. And so you want to diversify and maybe have a dozen or 50 different creators representing your brand. So if one of them does something unkosher, you just swap them out and there isn't that same spotlight on the person. So that's one. Second to that, the more people you use who have a smaller audience, the higher their engagement, but more importantly, the closer their relationship is with their audience. So when they send a message, their audience is going to listen because they look up to them and they're still relatable. They're not this celebrity on a pedestal. Next, most brands will start with a PR firm for basically those same first two reasons of, hey, PR firms have always dealt with celebrities. They, get them to events and get them in the press. But PR firms aren't powered by technology. They're powered by humans. And humans, like you mentioned, can only manage so many relationships on their own. So oftentimes PR firms will just recycle the same list of creators, the same 100 people that they know and love for all their clients, which isn't authentic and cannot be, doing their clients a service. So you need to look for, at minimum, a technology solution that provides the scale so that you can work with more than one creator, ideally dozens of creators, so you can test which ones work and which ones don't. Just like you would A/B test banner ads or programmatic, you're going to A/B test the creators you work with as well. And most people, I don't think, realize that. They're just like, we'll throw some money at it and become the next Kylie Jenner lip kit. But that's not going to happen for most brands. It takes a ton of strategy and understanding of this channel to see those kind of results. So expectation setting is important, knowing what you're getting into, and then really testing a variety of creators at all following sizes before you secure any long-term relationships or rule out that the channel is not for you. And then I guess just to carry that forward, you might do all of the right things in the beginning. So you might actually test different people, and you might do the opposite of all the bad things I said people do. But at the end, after doing all that great work, you might also only do organic. So you might just have the creators produce the content and post to their followers. But I think that's a common misstep also. You need to combine the organic with the paid social, especially the whitelisting, because then you're leveraging the same creators. Or if you're not into whitelisting or don't have the expertise to set up, at minimum, reuse the creator's content on your own social channels and on your paid social, because they know how to create content that will resonate with your audience.
Most definitely. So that was really good when it comes to overcoming hurdles when it comes to creating campaigns. But all of our audience members are entrepreneurs, right? So what hurdles have you had to go through as an entrepreneur that you really had to overcome in building the business and trying to grow?
Quitting smoking is one of them. My co-founder and I smoked a lot of cigarettes at the start of the business for the first few years, stressful times. Recently switched to the Juul a few years back.
Okay.
And even getting over that hurdle, I don't know. You got to have a healthy body, healthy mind to make good decisions for your business. And I only recently have started, actually taking better care of myself with what I eat and working out and things like that. But it makes the difference with your performance. So your body is a temple and you got to treat it as such to see the performance you're expecting. But by no means am I preaching, because I've got a long way to go. So that's one. And then other hurdles, just day-to-day challenges. As you proceed in your business, there aren't any fewer challenges. You solve a problem one day, I guarantee you there's another one tomorrow. But as you proceed, the problems just get bigger. What you think is an issue in your first year, you will laugh at in your fifth year. So, hopefully that you make it there. So it's really understanding not to sweat the small stuff and that there are going to be challenges, and having a strong backbone and being persistent no matter what. Like, that's the difference between an entrepreneur who makes it to the finish line and one who doesn't, and one who can raise money and one who can't. You talk to any angel investor and they say, I don't give a shit what the idea is for the most part. I don't care how much money you've made. I care about you. Are you the entrepreneur? Are you the horse that I want to bet on who's going to make it to the finish line no matter what? Because your business is going to take you 5 to 10 years to build, and it's going to pivot, and your industry is going to change, and who knows what the business will look like by the time we all make money. But I need to know that you, the founder, are going to make it to the finish line and guide it in the direction it needs to go no matter what happens. So I think that is the most important thing, the grit and the persistence, because you're going to go through all these problems, and the small ones will teach you lessons that help you deal with the big ones. And like, getting more specific in our business, our first year, we almost went bankrupt in the DMZ. Like, I was funding the business with some of the money that I made from the app business and then selling that portfolio. And we thought we were going to get this $30,000 grant from the government. It didn't come in, and we almost went bankrupt. And then luckily we applied to this accelerator really quickly, and they hooked us up with a different grant that ended up enabling us to pay our bills that month. So that was like a first early day challenge. Next to that, hiring people in America. Yeah, moving out to New York was awesome, and it was great to live there, but it was a total clusterfuck. Like, I went out and thought I knew everything and could just go run my own version of #paid in New York. And that's when I realized I don't know anything about hiring, because I don't know if I made the best decisions in certain people that I hired, who ultimately didn't end up working out for whatever reason. I don't think I was a good manager. I realized that too. I've never had a job. I don't know what a good manager is. So when you're only managing 2-3 people, it's easy to communicate and keep in touch and be supportive. But when you're managing 10 people, it's you got to really have that skill set. And I didn't. So a lot of personal learnings in New York, and then realizing, like, just because you're a Canadian company, you don't necessarily have to be in America. Toronto is a great place to build a startup. The government gives us a ton of funding for developers, for so many different grants. Like, we've probably gotten 3 to 5 to 6, I don't even know how many millions of dollars from the Canadian government to support our business, and on top of the 10 million plus that we've raised from investors. So
let's talk about that. So tell us about grant money, man. I've gotten a grant as well for $3,000. I mean, that's only $3,000. Like, is there an art to writing grants? Just briefly, because, I want to respect the time of the listeners as well, and your time, of course. But is there an art to writing grants, and like any tidbits there?
All I can tell you is I wrote that first grant that was rejected, and I haven't written one since.
I respect that.
There is a little bit of an art. I think, trying to get in with the people who are running the grants. So, like, even calling them and asking them bullshit questions just to get your name on their radar, or emailing or whatever, getting in contact. Like, most of these grants are submitted online, and they don't put faces to companies, and they don't know who the hell you are. So why would they give you money over anyone else other than comparing you in a stack of paper? So I think trying to develop some sort of personal connection with these people can be one angle. Hiring partners. So, like, for SHRED, for example, the science, research, educational development that, like, every company gets in Canada for the most part for their developers. It covers essentially like 50 to 80% of your developers' salaries if you're advancing technology and can prove that to a government like auditor, essentially. So there are organizations now that take, 10 to 20% of the money you get back from the government in exchange for completing those applications, for working with your team to make sure all the documentation is, filled out properly. And then it's also just like never having one person complete an application on their own. You always want to, what we learned after, you always want multiple people's eyes on it and different experts from your team working on them. Like, let your finance person write the finance section, let your salesperson write the sales section, and so on. because you get their unique wording and their unique insight versus just, you know, being the founder and kind of overseeing a little bit of everything and trying to fill it all out. That would be sort of my reco.
Oh, man, I'm so happy you said that, because that's going to impact people. You know, a lot of people don't know anything about writing grants.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And like, it can be, I also want to highlight that like it can be a full-time job in and of itself. And I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, a Google search shows companies that literally fill them up for you. But don't be distracted by them. Like, we spent a lot of time in the beginning when we were only 2, 3, 4 people, where one person's whole day was devoted to writing these grant applications. And like, oftentimes it's not the best use of your time. So finding that balance of like, how long does it take to do this application? When do you actually get the money if you were to get it? And like, you know, just doing some calculations around like, is it worth the time you're going to pay someone to do it, or just as the founder devote to it, that you're not actually running your business? Like, the best way to get money is to go sell, like go make money. You know, you don't have
generate cash flow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Close.
if you have the resources to handle these grants, then put them towards it, but don't like, that shouldn't be your first step. I don't think.
Most definitely.
So, Adam, shifting gears to like, the current climate right now that we're in COVID. Talk about like how #paid is going through this time with COVID and everything going on with like the riots, with the whole Ahmaud Arbery case. Like, how's your company responding to this?
Okay, good. I'm glad we went into the COVID, my company direction. I don't know if I want to get into racism on this. I don't know. I actually just published a book about challenging racism and whatnot. And maybe that's actually an interesting angle, being a white guy here sitting with 2 black guys. Like, I don't know if that's a world we're going to enter on this call. But
bro, I mean, I think this is a great opportunity because, you know, you're building a tech company, and, you know, a lot of like the talks right now is like, you know, talking about how race really impacts like the business setting. You know, and you can also highlight a little bit about what you wrote about, and, you know, just having that conversation because it's so relevant. It's a conversation that's happening right now. And, you know, would love to hear your take on it and what you think about it. You know, this is a platform. A lot of listeners are from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, you know, let's chat.
Okay. So
also before you jump in, you know, this is not a gotcha type of setting. You know, I just want to clear that air as well.
Yeah.
We're not trying to just be like,
we're not trying to coerce you into like a lane or whatever. Like,
yeah, definitely not. If anything, feel free to ask questions to learn as well. You know, and have like an open dialogue. You know, I think one thing that we miss is a lot of open dialogues. It's like, hey, I'm curious about that. How can I help? How can I not? How can you know? Let this open dialogue.
So that's actually interesting. Maybe I'll start there. We, for a long time, we have a diversity, inclusion, and belonging committee at #paid, our DIBS committee. And it was for a while led by Corey Sherwood, who is a black dude, who came over from Mondelez and Coca-Cola. Brilliant guy, was on our strategy team, went above and beyond, and, you know, led this committee for us. And he actually just left the company a few months ago to do the same thing at Facebook in California, to work on their diversity team and be involved in that sort of stuff. So I really learned most of what I know, how to even acknowledge my own biases from Corey. So I am by no means an expert, and, you know, I know I'm not perfect. So anything I'm going to talk about really comes from our internal sort of conversations at our meetings. And so we had one today run by another black guy on our team who called it Ask a Black Guy. And he put it in every single person's calendar. And he sent a message in our Slack channel saying like, hey, I'm a black guy. Did you know? Like, ask me things. You're all focusing on social media and asking other people. And it's like, we work together. We're all friends here. Like, I'm here. Basically what you guys just said. And my question that I submitted to him was like, hey, I got a handful of other black friends and like, I care about them. How do I go and ask them like how they are without seeming like a dick or like a privileged white guy? So I guess that's the same question for you two, is like, is it cool to go up to my black boys and like ask them about this stuff, and how is the right way to do that? Because I care. I can wholeheartedly admit that. It's just, I don't want to come off the wrong way or insensitive or,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
That's a great question. You want me to go first?
I mean, I'll just say this.
Go ahead.
So I think, Adam, I think one of the things that a lot of white people face, right, is the concept of white fragility, right? This whole idea of like white fragility essentially exists where people are scared to talk about race because they are the ones who are inflicting this pain on like a certain group of people, right? So it doesn't have to be like black people in general. It could be any other group of marginalized individuals. So a lot of white people want to talk about these things, but they, even on social right now, it wasn't until today where people felt so comfortable to really post like that black tile, because it didn't really take much effort to really come up with something to say. So a lot of people, like, they don't really know how to approach it. They don't really know what to say. It's like a cluster of emotions to really communicate how you feel. And one of the few things that you can do is, I think one thing that you have to just come out of your shell and acknowledge that this is like something that does exist. You can just start off by saying, hey, like, I understand the position I'm in of privilege. I want to really understand from you, like, how do you feel about these things and what goes on in your community that you think I might not know about, or the things I lived through as a white man that you notice, but it's hard for me to notice. It's hard for you to notice because you're white. And they'll open up to you and talk to you about those things, because it really impacts everything. Socially, definitely impacts you. Economically, I think it starts from economics too, because then it goes all the way down. Because racism does come from like a institutionalized type of thing where people are like held out from a lot of opportunities. So it starts from like an economic level to have that conversation and ask them, how are you? How's like your job going? How's it like with school, healthcare? These are the things that they'll tell you about. And, I think once you have that conversation with a lot of black people, you'll see like what they battle. That's like step one. It's having that conversation, just being comfortable. Al, what do you think? Like, am I right or wrong on this?
I think like that could create a lot of overthinking,
But the thing is, they're already overthinking though.
Yes, this is true.
Definitely, I am victim of overthinking. Like for 5 days now, I'm like, can I message my buddy, or am I going to look like an asshole? Like, why am I messaging him this week versus 2 weeks ago to say, what up, how you doing? Like,
Yeah, you don't want to come off as insensitive at the same time.
Yeah. I'd keep it like short and simple, man. If I was talking to someone, I'd be like, man, this is fucked up. How can I help? Short and simple. Where a lot of times we are dying to vent, to be honest with you. A lot of us, we really want to vent and just don't have a platform to vent, especially black men. Black women have wine down Wednesdays, sipping paints, black women collectives, and
they're
X,
more
Y,
together.
and Z. Exactly. Yeah. We got the barbershop, which is closed down, and like the basketball court.
Which is closed down.
Which is closed. You know what I'm saying? Well, kind of open now, but you know what I'm saying? So just the question, hey, how can I help? Alone is a high funnel activity. To tie it all in. You know what I'm saying? You like that one?
Yeah.
Just to open it up and just like when you say this, like man, this is fucked up. It's very simple, and it sounds a little more organic. So it's not like, hey, the system has fragmented us, and you know what I'm saying. It doesn't look like you're trying to like throw words together. This, keeping it calm, like grabbing a beer, I think is a good start. And of course, acknowledging what the current situation is definitely powerful. The systems that's at play, but I think starting simple is an easy way, because a lot of people, like I said, are going through a lot right now. And the last thing I'd want to happen to a white person is to get the anger from somebody else put on them, or misplaced anger, I guess. And I wouldn't want that to happen to you, So yeah, just asking, how can I help? I think is a really good start. Yeah.
That's definitely a good, easy step. Like, I feel like, it's an easy step. It's caring about someone else and asking them how they're doing. Makes sense as a good first step. I like the idea of obviously acknowledging, the privilege that I have or that society is set up for white people, and then understanding or asking about how their experiences or your experiences are different. I think is probably a good place to start, and then hopefully will teach me more along the journey.
Most definitely.
Yeah, man. And trust me.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, trust me, like all your Black friends, they want you to reach out, right? Because there's a lot of people like who are in your similar position who are not reaching out because they don't know they're in like this bubble. Like, man, should I reach out? Oh, maybe I should not. Maybe I should give it a couple of days because it's like tension is really thick right now. But, you just got to go in there. You just got to like type that message and be like, bruh.
You're building my confidence right now. I think I'm going to reach out to all my boys after this call.
Reach out, man. Everyone's like going through that pain right now. And it definitely helps when you do, because it shows that you're an ally and you're willing to educate yourself on these issues to really bridge things and move things forward as a collective.
Yeah. And if you see something that's fucked up, just call it.
Like that. You guys are giving me some good food for thought here.
So
good action to take.
Most definitely. So like with COVID though, how's the business been affected? Like in terms of like more business, less business? Like now that you moved to SaaS, I'm guessing it's easier, harder? How's it going?
So we only launched the SaaS business last August. So I don't know, 8 months ago or so. Mm-hmm. Math is. And why we did that was to build predictability to our revenue. When we operate as an agency, some months clients come back, other months they don't. Sometimes, it's this unpredictable, whenever we get an RFP, we get one. And that was the problem with our projections, with our reports to investors. It was, there was always some inconsistency. And our goal is to project our future business as best as possible. And in order to do that, if you can stack recurring revenue, it makes it easy. At minimum, X amount is coming in. So that was always the goal. And what that has helped, during COVID to some extent, but our SaaS business is nowhere near where our enterprise business is that's been built for 6 years now. So the SaaS business, fine, that's still growing at pretty much the same rate as it was before. In fact, we actually just changed our pricing in part because of COVID and just because we went through a few month test and realized it was time to try something new. And in the last, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we've been able to sign on more SaaS customers than any other 2-week window since we launched it. So that's been good. But on the enterprise side of the business, where the average spend is, $100,000 a campaign, and we're working with large brands, we immediately, once this sort of hit in mid-March, we cut our Q2 projections by like 50%, just based on what we were hearing, based on conversations with clients, based on them just saying, we don't know where our money's going to be spent. There's no Olympics. There's no hot sports seasons. There's no all of these things. So I think there was an initial sort of freak out and pause from marketers where they're like, okay, we got to just take some time to rethink what this year is going to look like. And I think that probably affected us from maybe mid-March until mid-May or the beginning of May. But the beginning of March was really good. So by the end, we still had a great March. But then April was a terrible month. Maybe our worst month in 2 or 3 years. Because again, all of our campaigns were either on hold or for whatever reason, they said we're not going to sign. And so April was terrible. Luckily, we were actually the first company, I believe, in Canada, like approved, or in Ontario, approved for wage subsidies. And our rent was covered and certain elements by the government. So even like we were definitely impacted more than the 30% or whatever threshold it was. So that was good that we were able to get those, that government support and those dollars from the government to make sure that we could keep our team whole. Fortunately, we didn't have to lay anyone off because of COVID. We made sure that, we had enough cash in the bank and whatnot to see this through. And so far, we haven't had to make any personnel changes. In May, we saw things slowly picking up at the beginning. And then by May 15th or so, deals started closing again. And it was a slow pickup. And then like the third week of May was our biggest week in a couple months. And May ended up being pretty much where we expected it to be prior to COVID. And now June is looking pretty good too. And, I don't want to jinx anything, but pending, COVID ending soon or it coming back for a second go, that would be bad. And who knows, that would affect business. But so far it looks like things are looking up and we haven't had to lay anyone off. And I think with regards to what we're actually selling now, that has slightly shifted. So we usually sell maybe 10 to 20% of our revenue is just for content. So it doesn't get posted, it doesn't get amplified. It's just for companies to have content to post on their accounts and their websites and wherever else they need it. That's only a very small piece of our business. But now we're seeing that because creative agencies are closed and you can't run large scale productions, creators are an incredible way to get content because they're at home. They're experiencing the same things we all are. It's as authentic as it can be. But the difference is they've got incredible camera equipment to capture these moments. So they are a great way to get content. And then secondarily, on organic and paid, there is a huge arbitrage opportunity right now where ad dollars are going a lot further because CPM, CPCs, all of these metrics, it's a lot easier to achieve them now on these social networks because there's less spend going, less advertisers, but usage is up. So it's really interesting where usage is up about 80% and spend is down. And so you have this opportunity to, if you can, get creators for a lot cheaper right now because they're not getting as much work. And then you can amplify it and get in front of audiences that you may not have been able to at that price, for who knows how long.
Yeah,
most definitely. We talked about that for our audience listeners in the Eden episode. Eating the Foodie right now is a good time. It's still a good time to hop into Facebook advertising because there's less people in it, less people bidding, less competition, more for you to make gains and grow online.
100%.
Facebook, right? 100%. Yeah, agreed. Facebook right now is creating more opportunities for people to advertise because there's less advertisers on this, so they want to make more money. For instance, on IGTV, there's new placements coming in with in-stream ads on IGTV, which is a new opportunity for you to make money while advertising on that platform for specific creators. They're rolling it out slowly. What do you say to that, actually? Because now Facebook's trying to pay influencers. Of course, it's a slow rollout. And of course, it's not going to be the end-all, be-all of influencer marketing for agencies. But I think I'm curious to know.
It's a great thing for the industry. It really just shows that Facebook is investing in the creator economy. Finally, It's taken this long. I mean,
right?
YouTube, that was their original model. Give the people who give us the content that people come to our platform to consume a cut of the billions of dollars that they make. It keeps the creators loyal for one, which is good. I think if it actually works and Instagram can help creators monetize, then maybe they'll be less likely to go to TikTok or any other new networks that come out in the future because they'll have more ties to it. But I think generally it's just a great thing. It could maybe affect us in the future. I don't think Facebook rolls anything out too quickly. So I'm not worried in the short term. But I think generally it's a great thing to see Facebook finally stepping up and supporting the people who made Instagram and Facebook what it is.
Most definitely. As we work towards wrapping up, when you were just getting started with hashtag paid, there's always room for improvement. I know must have been like messy middles that you were a part of, right? What lessons did you learn then that you can apply now and that our listeners could take away from?
Well, I'm definitely still in the messy middle. That's for sure. Of the business and, figuring out what my life looks like on a regular day. But I don't know. I think my weaknesses have always just been sort of time management, discipline, and sort of follow through, which it sounds like how could I ever get a business up and running without those things? But those are really my challenges. I said it at the beginning. I'm usually 2 to 5 minutes late to everything, whether it's a meeting with the friggin' CEO of Coca-Cola or a meeting with my mom. Like, it doesn't even matter. I'm usually late to everything, and really like figuring that out slowly but surely over the last 5 years has helped me a lot. Like, my entire calendar is shifted 15 minutes earlier because I have to mentally trick myself to go to meetings earlier, because I'd rather wait there 5 minutes now than, be 5 minutes late. So that's one tactic. Discipline, like, I mentioned it personally with smoking, but like just being focused on the right things and prioritizing, and then being disciplined to say like, no, even though you want to do something that might be fun, like you need to do the things that your business requires when they require it or when it requires it. So prioritizing and then sticking to that. And then finally, follow through. So just making sure that like when you tell your team or yourself that you're going to do something, that you go through the right steps and have the discipline to get it out the door and follow through with it. And with that, just also like not setting unrealistic expectations for yourself. It makes it hard to follow through if you promise everything to everyone. So really just like, I personally try to not commit to things as much as I used to, or commit to them maybe later in life. So I don't like closer to that date than ahead of time, so that I don't bail or, forget about it or what have you. So just setting yourself up with realistic expectations and then delivering.
Adam, check out this one book called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've heard about it, by James Clear. I feel like, helping you with your habits, it definitely helped me with mine. But everything all comes down to habit. I think you're going to find a lot of gems in that book that, you've quit smoking, but, getting on time, all these other things. I think you're going to really love this book. It's such a quick read as well, too. And
get a note.
Pardon? Yeah. Atomic Habits.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Solid, man. Well, Adam, man, thank you for coming to the show. Really appreciated it, man. And I know this is like a intro from David, our mutual friend, and I gotta thank him for the alley-oop, for the slam dunk. Man, shout out to David King, man. I know he's gonna listen to this because he's like, yeah, I can't wait to hear Adam talk. So it's gonna be a good one.
Yes, shout out to DK for sure, and thank you guys for the interview and for the advice on how to, speak to my friends about what's going on.
Man, just get in there, bro. Don't even hold back. Just get in there and don't look back, because they're waiting for you.
Awesome.
Most definitely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Hustle Over Everything. Peace.
Thank you.